So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight to our 15th episode of the second season of BA Day Afterwork Talk podcast. We have really interesting conversation tonight and we have great guest with us. Yulia, I will pass you word later a little bit. So let me just quickly remind you what is it this our podcast and what is going on here. Anyway, so the podcast was created by Robert Wendt. He is a founder of BA European BA Day conference and also founder of this podcast. So I am helping him. Unfortunately, he could not join us tonight, so I will be alone. But anyway, I have less experience than Rainer, but more than 20 years in IT, in different domains, in different have different skills, and also different certifications. So I hope I can share and support my guest tonight in our conversation about business processes and artificial intelligence. Before we start our conversation, let me just remind you about our best sponsors, of course. It's Deutsche Telekom. Thank you to them for supporting our conference and our podcasts. Also, our traditional sponsors, IBO and Masventa. And this year, IREP is a special sponsor as well. So thank you very much for supporting us. And let me just jump to our topic and our guest. So tonight we have Yulia Kosarenko. Yulia, please tell a few words about yourself. And yeah.
All right. Thanks, Alexander. So my name is Yulia. I am originally from Ukraine. I'm in Canada. I think I'm a business analyst at heart, even though my background is computer science, but I kind of moved into business analysis as soon as I could. 6 years ago, I wrote a book, Business Analyst, a Profession and a Mindset. And since then, I was trying to promote this idea of the mindset of understanding your customers, of taking responsibility for analysis, for elicitation, for thinking, not just being a scribe, but actually being a trusted advisor to business. So you can find various materials on BA mindset on my website. I have YouTube channel. I also teach analytics, business analytics at Humber College in Toronto, and my new book is actually coming out in a couple of weeks, Foundations of Business Analytics. So last couple of years, I think what I did most was I was teaching business analysis, I was teaching business analytics, and then I was teaching a lot of business analysts about the need to understand more about data, to apply data analysis in their business analysis tasks, and how to approach projects, which are analytics projects, so data science projects, in its essence, and how they may be different from a regular enterprise application project. So really teaching business analysts more about data. And of course, with my business analytics students, I keep telling them how important it is to understand the requirements of business before they try to create a new dashboard. So I run a Mindset Circle, which is a group mentorship program where business analysts get together weekly and just talk about different topics and share their experiences. And I do a lot of things in the community. I'm very happy to be here and happy to speak at the upcoming conference as well.
Yes, Yulia, we are happy to have you as a speaker. Yeah, you have a workshop as well. We will mention it later. But now let's start with I heard interesting different things like business analytics and business analysis. So what is the difference? Because sounds really similar.
I agree. And that's a good question. And, it's such a good question that sometimes students apply to business analytics program and maybe thinking about business analysis. So it's like a Venn diagram, right? Business analysis, of course, is all about analyzing needs of the business and defining future solution and defining requirements. Business analytics is more about using data and deriving insights from data to help business make better decisions. So if you think about data analytics in general, as analyzing data for various purposes, it could be scientific, it could be election polls, it could be sociology, various applications, but business analytics is really focused on application in business, on solving business problems. So someone who specializes in business analytics may work for business intelligence department, or may develop dashboards, or someone with more advanced machine learning knowledge and may be developing machine learning algorithm. We always, we love the word AI, like it's a big buzzword, but really a lot of it is about developing machine learning solutions, data science, exploring data, and also trying to monetize data. For example, how can an organization use the data it has to service customers better, to make profit in an ethical way, and basically to get ahead of competitors. So it's really two areas which sound similar and have an overlap, but we have to distinguish them.
Yeah, and still before we go further about data analytics and AI, let's stay a little bit on business part. Yeah, because in both words we have business. And what do you think? How good should analysts understand business to be able to analyze it and to be able to provide some insights or solutions?
So if I think domain knowledge is a big advantage. It's not necessarily a prerequisite for a business analyst starting, and sometimes it helps for a business analyst that who moves, say, from one industry to another to come in fresh. But I think BAs need to be very curious to learn about domain, as much as they can, because without it, they literally become scribes, right? Someone will tell them what the business rule is. Yeah, you can write it down, but you will not understand why. So you will not be able to question it. You may not necessarily be able to find, discrepancies or contradictions, or understand whether this, these business requirements are complete. So I do believe in generalist business analysts, and I'm one of them. I worked in many industries, but in every industry you have to learn, and you have to learn fast. And even things like legislation, regulation, competitor market, all of that is important. So I would say that as a business analyst, I mean, if you are very interested in being more of a system analyst, IT analyst, maybe you can focus more on, say, a big system functionality. But as a business analyst, you really need to work closely with stakeholders. You need to understand them. You need to go and read your company's website, understand its product, read its white papers, know all of the company news, so that you actually understand what is happening, and then you'll understand the rationale behind project, the why are we doing this initiative, what is really the value of different user stories and epics. So you cannot be a trusted advisor to business unless you actually understand business domain.
And what about some special business knowledge like economics, accounting, finance? What do you think? Is it really important or for business analyst?
Yeah, I mean, again, business analysts come from so many areas. I know maybe, and I don't know the statistics, maybe half of business analysts come from computer science, or software engineering background. Probably the other half come from business. And many a time, someone has finance background, they participated in financial project, software implementation as a subject matter expert, and that was their foot in the door. So you would have business analysts who specialize in, like, these business domains like marketing, sales, finance, accounting. And I actually know of some who always, they just continue in this swim lane. They just go and do more procurement projects. So they keep working on, IFRS accounting implementation. So if you have it, definitely capitalize in if you want, but I don't think it's a barrier if you don't. And honestly, a business analyst, like in terms of their generalist knowledge, they are like an MBA student, Masters of Business Administration. They need to know a little bit about everything. What is HR and how it works? How do you do chart of accounts? What does accounting mean? What is debit and credit? You don't necessarily have to be deep expert. You just have to, again, be curious about business. If you have more and if you want to capitalize, great. But again, this is where you learn from your stakeholders enough to, to help them define requirements. So I think that you end up learning and absorbing and sometimes you end up learning a certain area really well, but I don't think anyone should be afraid or worried to work on accounting project if they're not an expert in accounting. This is why you have your stakeholders. You just have to listen, analyze, and literally learn on the fly a little
Yeah. What about real business background? Having some small business or being, I don't know, part of some business. What do you think? Will it help?
bit. Every type of diverse experience helps. Now, entrepreneurship, I think, is quite different from being a business analyst in a corporation. So, well, if, for example, I'm a little bit of an entrepreneur, right? I have my own company. It's very different, right? Because you actually have to cut corners when you have your own little small business. So, okay, I know we are recording, but I mean, my personal opinion is that sometimes being an entrepreneur can actually prevent you from enjoying work as in a corporation because they're so different. Other than that, I mean, if you work for a startup, you probably aren't just a business analyst. You're gonna do many different things. So it's helpful in general. That definitely isn't necessary because again, as a business analyst, most likely you're part of that bigger machine. There's a project management office, there is an IT department, or you work for a vendor. So that's a machine where people have different roles, which is so different, right, from entrepreneurship. So, I mean, if you want to have fun and do it, sure, but you probably won't be able to do just analysis. You probably will have to do a lot of sales and marketing. So you have to know whether, that's something you want to do.
Yeah, and from my perspective, being an entrepreneurship helps you to take a viewpoint of your customer, of business people, and also often it helps a lot to talk with executives. Because in corporations, if you work in corporations, you often you will be working on some scope here. It's defined, and it's really rare that you will talk to some chief executives or something else. But with developing your career and getting more experience and being more getting more seniority, it happens that you will start pre-sales or upsales or something like this, and you will need to talk to these executives, or maybe even to a boss in small company. And sometimes it really helps to understand their point of view, because it's uh, again it's my personal experience, and it's really different from managers, because it's slightly different point of view, and understanding it helps you to understand how you can bring value to these people, what is valuable and what they want to get in reality.
No. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess you're much closer to bottom line, right? To whether your company is making money. I think when you're a business analyst in a large company, it's hard to understand how what you do brings value. And am I actually helping this organization make more money? Because you're just part of that bigger machine. But of course, in a small company, everything is visible, right? And you know exactly what is helping, what is selling, what is not selling, which customers are leaving and coming. So I guess it just closer to real business.
Yeah, and the other thing just come to my mind that there is a really difference between even I don't know businesses in US or North America in Europe, because in Europe often you can work with a customer with small companies, private companies, and there they will expect from you a lot of doing a lot of tasks, not only just business analysis. And in this situation, it helps a lot if you have some different experiences. Of course, working for a big corporation, you need to do your job well, and but it will be really limited to some tasks, type tasks. You do every day.
Yeah, I agree. My best experience as a business analyst here, on North America side, was actually working for a small software vendor, a company that developed its own software, from scratch. They started with 3 people. I joined where they had about 100. So we had a team of business analysts, but we were so close with customers. And if customer is unhappy, then the big boss is unhappy, and everyone knows about it. And that was one company where you had to perform. If you don't perform, you leave. If you don't perform but you want to try, someone is assigned as your mentor and they actually help you and mentor you. And I think that one experience really was where you could feel how what you do as a BA actually helps to build the product and helps to retain a customer, helps to win a customer. But I think the bigger the company, the more remote you are, from those big goals, and it becomes a little harder to see it.
Yeah, I remember when I started studying business analysis, there was a guy from big IT company. He said that there is a cycle of business analysts in their company. They work for outsourced project, then they are tired of this meaningless job, let's say it this way, and they go to startup just to bring value. Then they are just tired of bringing value and coming back. It's
Yeah,
of course it's a joke, but
yeah.
yeah, but it
But the
helps you.
jokes usually have some real background behind.
Yeah. Uh, and let's switch a little bit from experience and skills to our topic, to business processes and AI. So you have a great slide here, and I think it's good because sometimes people think that decisions comes from analytics by themselves. So you should just understand. You just should run Google Analytics or BI, and you will know what to do.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's not so, right?
I don't know. It doesn't work for me.
Well, of course, it doesn't, right? Because if you just, because again, there are different types of analytics, right? And maybe we can start there. So there are different types of analytics in terms of how much it can help you or the business to actually make a decision. Because the reason we need analytics or analytical insights is, to do something better. Like, why else would you waste time as an organization? Everything is about you making decisions. So if you can use analytics insight to make a better decision, then you're way ahead, right? But if you just generate a dashboard and that dashboard has some charts, but you don't know what to do with those charts. Like, okay, great, I see this breakdown. Now what? What am I going to do with this information? And I think that's where this big gap is. And with all these management performance standards, we create balanced scorecards and we measure this and we measure that. There was a lot of it throughout the years, right? But again, the question is, why are we measuring? Is there a purpose to measuring? Because if you just measure it for the sake of reporting to your superiors, then okay, you're just taking care of your own little seat and keeping it warm and making sure that your manager likes you because you bring them nice charts. But it does not necessarily solve any business problems. So, like, for example, I work because I was mostly working as business analyst and business systems analyst, but I worked quite a lot on analytics projects and reporting projects in my past as well. And I know you would talk sometimes with people who work for reporting team, and they say, look, we created this dashboard or this report 3 years ago. Nobody looks at it. Now they want a new one. And as you start to look at, usage stats, for example, you see that the report is never used, or it's sent via email, it's never opened, or nobody even goes to this dashboard anymore. So that's a problem, because just seeing the summarization, just seeing a frequency table, seeing a pie chart does not necessarily help you to make better decisions. So, when I talk to my students, we start with it. I say, okay, imagine you look at the breakdown of your, not just breakdown, you have your expenses, what's your expense trade throughout the month. Does it help you figure out how to manage your budget better? Probably not yet. You need to know which of your expenses are growing, why they're growing. Is it temporary or is it permanent? Is there a reason? Do you have any control over making changes? Unless you do all that extra work, you cannot make a better decision about managing your budget. So if you think about this analytics gap, I mean, there's the first fundamental type of analytics is descriptive analytics. I'm summarizing data. I look at all these big databases, lots of transactions. I summarize, daily volumes, breakdown by region. That's just information that tells you what happened. From there, to make a decision, there's still a very big gap. Then we start to think about asking questions like, why did it happen? Why did it go up? Why did it go down? Why this group of customers are leaving? Or why this group of customers have lower satisfaction? Why do we have so many bad reviews on this particular product in this particular region? So that's when we start to do diagnostic or diagnostic analytics. So looking for root cause, trying to understand what's the correlation. Is there a correlation? What are the different causes that may be contributing? That means you're starting to understand why something happens. So that brings you a little bit closer to the decision, but you're still not there. If, for example, if you want to make a decision about should I continue with this product or should I drop it? Or is there a point for me to offer customer discounts? Will it help to bring customers back, or will I just be losing money because they'll buy something at a discount and then leave anyway, right? So this type of thinking requires more. It requires advanced analytics. So then we go into prediction. Without prediction, it's very hard to do advanced decisions. So maybe building a predictive model that will help you. But once you learn what are the reasons, well, what is possible? What is likely to happen if I do this? What is the likelihood that we will sell more if you do this? Or which groups of customers are actually interested and will purchase more? So you need to work into prediction and then try to recommend what's the best decision, right? Should I go here or here or here? To determine that, I can use more advanced analytics, and then finally I get to this decision. So there is a lot more to it than just creating a report, right? And management, because sometimes they look at those dashboards and they are not sure how it helps them, they still make their decision based on gut, right? And then there's this big separation, and you just wasted so much money developing a new dashboard. You paid a group of 5 people for 3 months, and there's no benefit or no value. I
Yeah,
don't know. What's your experience, Alexander?
the same, yeah. And what I want to add here that it's very important to start not with building dashboard or selecting some diagrams, but understanding what problem we are gonna, yeah, what problem we are looking at or looking for. Yeah, and here it's for me it's a great example when business analysis and data analytics comes together, because business analysis helps you to understand what is the problem, what problem we are trying to solve. We're not creating dashboard for dashboard. Yeah, we should solve some problem using this dashboard, and only understanding what problem, it can help us understand what data we should analyze, what we should look there in this data, and what, yeah, and then just go on with analysis and creating some models to support some ideas how we can resolve this problem.
Yeah.
So it's great example of, yeah, of as is analysis and to be analysis, and yeah, understanding the gap. And in this case, as this will be just having a dashboard, and to be it can be some models that helps you to model different decisions and understand how will it affect on your data that you control.
Yeah,
And
no, for sure. And sometimes these analytics and these dashboards start without any requirements, right? It's, okay, we need to have some monthly reporting. So you try to make it generic so that it keeps everyone happy, but then it becomes so generic that, you know, for you to actually extract some action items out of those dashboards requires so much thinking that what happens in real life. People go to those dashboards and they download the data, they go back to Excel, and they start to look at the data in Excel anyway, because they basically what they're doing is in Excel, they're doing their own analytics specific to their business problem because it's not there, right? So that diagnostics I was talking about, I mean, I'm a business manager and I want to understand why these reviews for this particular product are falling. If I can't find it in the dashboard because my dashboard is too generic or everything is lumped together, well, I'm gonna just, I guess, do my own analytics, right? And look record by record or do my pivot tables. And this is, I think, where again in companies, especially in large companies, we really there's this shiny dashboard over there, but there are a lot of shadow analytics systems behind the scenes and all those spread marks and gigantic spreadsheets which people actually use to make decisions, right? And then because they know their own requirements. So I think sometimes understanding analytics requirements, back to your point, is very, very hard, right? Because we as business analysts are more trained on what? Process flow, right? Everyone can do process flow. Okay, we want to automate the process. What are your steps in the process? Let me capture them. Which steps we automate? So that type of thinking is much more fundamental to most business analysis courses and books and everything, and that's easier for a BA, especially new BA, to understand. But some of the problems where we need analytics are very different. They're not about process automation. They're about understanding what's broken, right? Understanding what's not working. They're about analyzing your product features and maybe comparing them to competitors. So you can't do it just by analyzing the process. You need to do something different. And that's where it's harder, much harder.
Yeah, and what I want to add here that often creating a dashboard just highlights a lot of problems down there in data, in process when this data is created, processed, etc. Because and it's sometimes it's very complicated for June or middle data analysts because they are great in creating dashboards, calculations, predictions, models, etc. But they can't understand why they receive first requirement. Bring me a table with these numbers. Yes,
Yeah.
and they look at this table. They understand that it's sometimes it doesn't feel right. Yeah, it doesn't calculate the numbers that it should be. But for for business stakeholders, it's not clear yet how they want to see what they feel the problem, but they can't explain it. So
Yeah.
if you good in data analytics but you don't understand business problem, or it's complicated yet to elicit requirements, not just uh write it down, or just create a dashboard. So very often some dashboard can be created, I don't know, 10 or 2 3 5 times, 10 times, but when the process goes, so business stakeholders can understand where their real problems are.
Yeah.
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 And
No, agree. And it's also about the metrics, right? Because so there's like a multiple problems. One problem is, do we actually understand business requirements? Has anyone asked, right? Because business sometimes also business stakeholders don't always realize that analytics or reporting also needs requirements. They think it's self-explanatory because in their brain it's self-explanatory. The other problem is data itself. So the data quality may be bad, right? You may be missing data. You may have some, standardization issues. Data comes from different systems. It's all over the place. The third problem also is metrics. How do you define your metrics? For example, business stakeholder will say my sales volume, but what exactly does sales volume mean? It can mean 10 different things. It can mean the number of orders. It can mean dollar amount. It may be dollar amount minus your returns. So unless you understand as a data analyst, for example, if someone gave you requirements, sales volume in a column chart. Well, if you assume what sales volume is, but you don't clarify it, you may create your chart, but it's not going to be what the stakeholder expected. So I know when I worked for commercial insurance, I encountered how complex these metrics can be in commercial insurance when you talk about, the total volume, coverage of different types of policies. So even different departments can have different ideas and their numbers will never match because they calculate them differently. Or I think you're calculating this, but so going back to data governance aspect of it and making sure that if you define a metric like sales volume, you define very clearly what it is. Or you have, sales volume by orders, and so you have multiple metrics with different names then. And that's another part where business analysts can play a huge role because we're good with definition and with language, but we can never assume that an analytics metric is clear and everybody means the same, because that's just not true, especially with complex ones like
yeah,
KPIs.
it's not only with complex ones. It's from my experience here a few months ago. So I have a great data analytic guy. So he does great job, but he just complained to me. Okay, I was trying to create this dashboard for these two departments, but they keep calling the same attribute with different names. And they spent half of the day fighting how they should name it. And finally, what he did, he just created a table that just matches these names and showed different name for different
Oh
stakeholder.
my God. Okay.
Yeah. So, and we're talking about, yeah, basic glossary.
Yeah.
The basic task of business analyst is just to defining the glossary and helping the stakeholders to, yeah, to define it, this all these terms. Yeah. We're talking about, yeah, basic needs, just understanding needs, because often different stakeholders from different departments will have different needs using the same numbers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's really important to help them to express these needs and bring them together and help them to find the common ground and
Yeah.
show how you can help them with creating, for example, different dashboards showing the same numbers but differently. Yeah, because for example, for finance, the cash flow needed, yeah, for some period just to understand where will be the gaps and where they should find some additional financing. For example, for a business owner, it can be just cash flows, balance statement or cash statement. Yeah, where they can see over how much money do they have on different accounts. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about the same numbers but different views. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's important. Yeah, that's why it's important to use business analysis techniques to support with data analytics knowledge with business analysis techniques. Because
Yeah,
if you
for
have more
sure.
than one, yeah, more than one stakeholder, you should just understand how to work with them.
Yeah, and as a business analyst, again, this is where you need to understand a little bit more deeply what does analytics mean of business analytics. For example, that there are different ways to summarize data or aggregate data, and even how you select the data for your summarization will make a big impact on your result, right? So, it's, one of my favorite examples is the number of customers. Yeah, it's just a count of customers, but who is the customer? When were they the customer? Are they current customer? Do they have to buy something? Like, so you start asking different departments, and again, they will have different idea about who they call customer, right? Or who is a
Yeah,
prospect, or who is the lead, and the numbers can be vastly different. So just for a BA to understand that it's essential for them to define this and define criteria and the way you summarize and what is included and how you break it down, and if you do frequency table or bivariate, multivariate, if you use different attributes for this summarization, what are they, in what order them apply, all that slicing and dicing, because it can materially change how the result looks, right? And because people are people, they'll look at the chart and they'll make jump to conclusions just by how the chart looks, right? And so that really comes with you engaging and trying and maybe doing some charts yourself and analyzing data and understanding how the result differs, so that you, because basically you have to be like a consultant to your business stakeholders when you help them with analytics required, even more than with regular projects.
yes, and it's very important to keep in mind because, of course, it's great if you're a data analyst and you have business analyst or just skilled stakeholder who understands other departments and just help you build the analytics. But if there is stakeholders in different departments and they live in their own department, they're in silo, yeah, creating their own data, and
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't match. So it's
Yep.
really important to help them to communicate, and data analytics can be this bridge because often they use the same data or results from one department will be input for another department.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
understanding this and connecting these different dashboards helps them to see problems because
Mm-hmm.
problems often comes on the intersection. Yeah, when the one department just passes information something to another one. And yeah, we're
Yeah.
starting to talk about business processes. So understanding processes, I think it's really important, yeah, for business analysts. And how would you connect data analytics and business processes? Because sometimes, yeah, it's two diagrams, different diagrams.
Yeah, yeah, and just again, thinking back to the previous slide and what we just talked about, we talked about how you have a dashboard over here and you look at it and then you extract some insight out of that. So that situation is like a one-time thing, which means if I am, for example, if I am a business person, I'm in charge of a certain process. Maybe I say I analyze complaints or I review applications. If I need to make a certain decision, what does it take for me? If it takes for me every time to turn around and go and open that dashboard and copy and paste my customer number or selection criteria or whatever it is, and look and wait for that dashboard to come up and look through the charts and find what I need, and then turn around here and try to use that information from the dashboard over there for my business process over here, how many times do you think I'm going to do it before I just stop and stop using that dashboard?
It depends how strong you are. I think you can stop after the first one or just not finish the first one.
Yeah. But this is like the most fundamental issue with both, dashboards and frankly with all these discussions about Gen AI, because when we talk about generative AI and using chatbots and copilots, it's usually about, okay, one-time thing. I turn around and I ask something of my copilot on Gemini and it gives me an answer, and then I turn around and I use it. So every time is like a one-time use thing. But when we talk about business process in a large organization, it's a repeatable sequence of events. And in some companies, the same business process would happen literally thousands of times every day. You receive 1,000 calls, 1,000 applications, 1,000 complaints. So it's very unlikely that people who work as part of this process, who operate, who are in operation, that they will have patience and desire and time to go and manually extract some, even the most amazing insights from a dashboard over there, especially if they need to change parameters every time manually, right? Because the dashboard sits on Tableau, I'm over here on my SAP or Salesforce or someplace, and they're not connected. And that's where really, I don't think we talk about embedded analytics enough, because the whole point is that if I process complaints honestly, and if I'm being measured, my performance is being measured on how many complaints I went through, how many customers, I don't want to turn around and look for stuff. I want everything here where I am. So the best type of analytics for these casual consumers of analytics, we're not talking about CEOs here, right? We're talking about regular people doing their jobs and being efficient. I want that analytics to be delivered to me. I look at this loan or I look at this complaint and something comes up, the analytics insight specific to this customer, this case, this application, and tells me something useful and makes my job more efficient. This is what I would want, if I was processing complaints. So, but to do that, we need to take those analytics insights from those beautiful models somewhere over there. We need to bring them back. So we're talking about integrating analytics into my workflow. And that's where we can reach scale, right? Not just like one time I ask something of Gemini. No, for scale, you need integration and you need analytics to be there. So that's why, like we need to, you have a business problem, for example, as a complaints officer, I want to know how to direct this complaint so that the customer receives a response faster. That's my user story, right? But for how do I reframe it as analytics problem? I need to basically take information about this claim, quickly check the customer, go back to my predictive model, and that predictive model has learned from thousands of previous complaints about what is the most likely reason or what is the most likely resolution. And it gives me a prediction, or it helps me to direct the claim. Or maybe it will tell me, you know what, 90% chance that if this customer restarts their computer, it will get resolved. So I'm going to ask them to restart the computer. But if the prediction will tell me, you know what, 99% chance that it's not going to be resolved by restarting, I'm not going to offer it. Because you know how much we are annoyed when someone tells us to restart our computer and you say, I already did it 3 times, it's not helping. So that's where there's a big difference. To have analytics used at scale to make your process more efficient, you actually need to architect it, you need to integrate it, and it needs to be embedded in your workflow.
Yeah, no, and just when you said when you start talking about this embedded analytics, I understood how to call this difference. Yeah, between we have a lot of buzz about you using AI just to create user stories or just writing some document for us, but actually it doesn't bring a lot of value. Yeah, and you are totally correct. But we will have keynote speech during our conference from Deutsche Telekom, and they just used a lot of models to scale the number of connections they are doing now, these PON connections, to 10,000 per day. And when they just this Thomas told us about the process is really complicated. So according to German law, if you just trying to dig something, after you dig in this cable, the surface should look the same as it was before.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like easy. Okay, what the problem to dig something? But when you need to connect somebody in the center of really old city where everything is made by stone, so the question to just rebuild this becomes really complicated, and also adds a lot of steps to the process. And actually, because of correct using of AI, they were able to scale the number. The other topic will be during the discussion about Deutsche Bahn, and they just improved using AI models the speed of rescheduling trains, because before it was more than 7 hours, and now they do it for 30 minutes. And if you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about very sections with a huge of traffic, 7 hours you can
Yeah.
just get from half of the country from one side to the another one. Yeah, and it's a great examples of embedded analytics, because when we're talking about really when we're talking about some correct, I would say, useful dashboard, you should see only things you need right now
Yes.
just to do your job. Yeah, and
Absolutely.
for me it's a great example, yeah, dashboard in your car, because you have two people sitting in the front of the car. But for driver, you have some dashboards, you some indicators that helps you to drive. For passenger, you have just heating, you just music, etc. So you need other tools, other dashboard, other instruments. And it's really important, yeah. But without understanding all the flow, all the processes that are behind this simple screen with two numbers, it's really not possible. Because again, in your example, when they just say that okay, the possibility that restarting computer won't work, you need really good model, yeah, that can
Yeah.
predict from your conversation that the situation similar to other situations when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, and it's actually it's really complicated to make this right. And
But
without
but
understanding,
then if you make it, it is going to scale, right? It's not like a
yeah,
one-time thing that to generate a little bit of text. I think that's where it's like, we're all excited about chatbots because it's fun for sure. And I totally understand it. But when we talk about large organization, there's a lot of statistic that says like 80% of data science projects fail, or so many, like a really large number, because as going back to what you said at the beginning, you need to understand what problem you're solving, right? So if I'm solving a problem of improving customer service to resolve complaints faster, or Deutsche Telekom is solving a problem, of getting the right, I guess, steps
numbers, yeah,
to do the connection, or the railway company is trying to reconfigure scheduling. It's a very complex computational task, right? It's a machine learning model. You have to collect a lot of data. That data needs to be cleaned, and engineers train their models. So it doesn't sound as glamorous as playing with prompts, but it is something that if you get it right, and if you monitor it, because you need to monitor those models, right? They need to constantly relearn based on the feedback. But that's something that can actually become part of your workflow, and because this is where AI is really good, right? Because it's computational power and the ability to get those patterns, extract them from data. So with that in mind, I mean, you can implement AI for many other things. Like I've read use cases about, predicting with underground water pipes, which pipe is likely to break and fix it earlier. Or in agriculture, the right amounts of water and nutrition and nutrients based on weather predictions and based on other predictions. There are many other applications that are not as glamorous, but they're actually more useful. It's just like we have to, even as analysts, to turn our mind. I know we like to have ChatGPT generate our user stories, and that's great, but there is much more that can be done for the company, not for me as an analyst to make my life more fun, but for the company and to improve that system, for example.
Yeah, but actually, it will make your life as a business analyst more fun, because instead of rewriting a lot of user stories or use cases or just huge documentation, you just can provide this model some hypothesis and just see results much quicker than you will do it manually, the calculation or by formulas. And
Yeah.
I think it's a main point of business analyst is understanding how business works will help you to understand what hypothesis is feasible for this context, for this company, and what is wrong. Yeah, it's can be really simple example, this e-commerce site. Yeah, because on every e-commerce site you have this suggested items
Mm-hmm.
when you just select something, or just you can replace items with something else. But actually, it really depends on the context of your customer. What is
Yeah.
his history? What is he buying? And it changes over time. So I don't believe that you can get all this information just from analyzing this historical data.
No,
You
no,
should
and it's,
just,
yeah, it's also based on other customers that are similar to you, right? So, and that's
yeah,
again where you cannot do that without machine learning. So I think that really interesting in terms of why would that be exciting for a business analyst is one thing is helping to reframe problem, right? So that's what we have here on slide. You have this business problem. How can analytics help you? So you need to reframe it. You need to figure out, well, what do I need to predict? What is that? What am I actually optimizing? What decision options I have? But the other part is realizing, like we as analysts, we used to do ifs and else and write out all the rules. With machine learning, it goes beyond it because you don't have all the rules and you don't know the rules anymore, right? You don't program the rules. Instead, the machine learning algorithm is discovering patterns that you may not even know existed, right? And that's the exciting part. So you cannot do it manually. You work with, say, machine learning engineers or your data scientist to try and extract. And sometimes the data will show you some surprising dependency that you wouldn't even suspect. And that's really what the value from machine learning or AI is really something that we maybe underestimate right now.
yeah. And another thing is it can support your idea or just reject it. Because again, when you think, well, if you're talking about again business processes, so often sometimes you need to change this process because it doesn't work right, or it takes a lot of effort just to do something. But
Mm-hmm.
to change it, you need to understand what you can change. And we're talking about some working process, so people doing this for 5 years, yeah, it works. And when you try to change something, uh, everyone will be terrified, because what happened if it won't work? So this way you can support your idea first of all from data that you collected from this process, and then just model and show, yeah, if we do it this way, yeah, there is some risks, there is some probability that it will change, won't work, but we can get here better, here worse, on here will be the changes. In
Yeah.
all these things, yeah, can provide you data analytics, but again, it should be correctly applied, because
Yeah, agree. And that you made really important point. It's You have to experiment, right? It's not like you wrote 10 requirements, the developer will execute them and you're done. No, with with machine learning or with AI, you experiment, you make a hypothesis, you develop a model, you start using this model, you monitor it, and you may discover that you need to change your parameters. So you need to change like which features you are using or which features are not. So it's like more like research and development, right? It like goes through cycles. And even those big companies like Google and LinkedIn and everybody else, they're constantly changing and tweaking their algorithms, right? So they're never like fixed in time. And that's another interesting thing about AI in business
Yeah.
applications.
Yeah, and if yeah, again, if we're talking about business processes, we have a lot of data on one hand, and on the other hand, it's too many parameters to the process. Because if you try to model or predict sales, it's not really easy task. Yeah, and then if you just add to this finance, your suppliers, changes around, yeah, environment changes, etc. So it becomes really complicated, and uh, adding this gut feeling to data analysis helps you to find these correct ideas or more prominent ideas that you will support with some analysis data, some models, etc. So it's yeah, it should be great combination of business analysis and data analysis and business analytics.
Yeah. No, I think it could be a lot of fun and it could be quite rewarding, right? Because you're also learning something new. You are learning new technology and you're expanding your capability, right? Because you're actually relying on finding those new patterns and then adjusting and then monitoring and then trying to see whether it gives you, like, you have to constantly measure it. Does it actually improve process? Does it improve satisfaction? What do we need to change? So it actually becomes much more like managing business and making data driven decisions than just kind of, okay, I heard the requirements, I wrote them down, they're done, I move on, right? So you actually are much closer to seeing the results of what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's I think in this example, in this case of combining data analytics, AI, and business analysis, it's great. Agile approach can be really great when you just provide some example, getting feedback, making better, getting feedback, making better. Because again, it's too complicated problems in business just to write down clear correct requirements just to get this solution. So you should just learn on your mistakes and on try and while you get the best example in this.
Yeah.
And it's important to understand this and just be patient, yeah, with your stakeholders, because we all want to get, yeah, clean requirements and just do our job, but unfortunately they are in the same position. They just uh, don't understand how they feel the correct solution, but they
Yeah.
can't tell you.
And frankly, with the new technologies like AI, you can't expect stakeholders to kind of be very clear about what their requirements are, right? They don't know. Sometimes they're worried about letting go control of things. Yeah, so it's even a very different, I think, mode of working with stakeholders when you work on AI projects.
Yeah, totally agree. And in this case, we are safe, yeah, from we were safe from AI that will replace us, because understanding people, I think it's a
Yeah.
most complicated task in business analysis.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and they're not static, yeah, they just change their mind a few times a day sometimes. So
Yeah.
being yeah, human, it helps you to understand your stakeholders, to find the way to communicate them, to engage them, yeah, and elicit requirements.
For sure.
Okay, hope our conversation, so we're getting to the end of the podcast, of the episode, and hope it was interesting conversation for our audience, because for me it was really fascinating. And just want to remind you that first of all, you can get to Yulia's workshop on May 14 before conference day. So it will be BA skills for success in business analytics and AI projects. We talked a lot about this, and so in 4 hours you can get a lot of practice here just to improve your skills, being business analyst, business data analyst, AI specialist, etc. And of course, Yulia will be talking. We'll have session during conference. So don't forget to go to our website, book your ticket, and listen to more interesting and useful ideas and knowledge. We still have a few minutes, so if somebody in the audience wants to ask something, so you can just write down in chat or just raise your hand and unmute. And I think Yulia will be happy to answer your question.
For sure. Sure. Fun topic.
Yeah, let's keep AI business processes and data analytics, because while people just gathering their mind and thinking about questions, I just remembered one podcast with product manager, and he said that there are two kinds of product managers. There's just vacuum robots and intuitive managers. So vacuum robots is just people who base their decision on data analytics. So they gather information about room, about all the corners, plotting the best road, and collect all the dust or something like this. But they never can find something new. Yeah, because they're working with existing data. When you use your intuition, you can find something new, or you can fail, of course. So there's always two options when you're trying to do this.
Yeah.
And what do you think? What do you prefer in business analytics and data analytics? So just to base every decision on data, or it can be gut feeling or intuition.
I think that there's never going to be one or the other for sure. I think that the art of reframing business problem as analytics problem is still our task, right? Because I mean, you know how they say, oh, data has all the answers. It really, data can give you any answer you want. So you can tweak the data, and politicians know it very well. You can twist the data to answer any question the way you want it. Just choose the right selection criteria. So I think that it's really about how you approach analytics, how you use it. But the other part of it, I think, what your host was referring to is about creativity and innovation, right? Because AI learns from past data. Yes, it can react to new situations, but those situations are supposed to be in some way similar to prior situations. This is why sometimes if you ask a chatbot something completely wild, it can give you a very wacky answer because it just doesn't know. So that true creativity has not been achieved. That would be general AI that we don't actually have yet, right? All of the AI that we have is all narrow, right? It's all based on finding patterns in the past data. So I think that with business, again, businesses that thrive, businesses that innovate, that come up with new ideas, unexpected ideas, and that's a very human trait, right? It's if you sometimes it's also about like humane approach to solving problem. Something may be rational, but it's not necessarily ethical. So if you think about ethics, again, we haven't solved a problem of ethical AI yet, right? If it makes decisions based on only rational, going back to prisoners, so to ethical dilemmas and trolley problems. If you just go by utility, okay, let me solve a problem where least people will get hurt, you're not able to apply like some kind of humane perspectives to it. So there's quite a few aspects where you actually need human in the loop, of human in the middle, and you need to judge what tasks are best suited for analytics, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, I think it's a very optimistic idea for us and for our future. So let's finish on it. Again, Yulia, thank you very much. Yeah, it was great podcast, a great episode, and great talk.
Thank
Hope
you.
our audience, yeah, enjoyed it. And again, see you all at the sixth European Business Analysis Day in May.
Yeah. Thanks for listening,
Yeah,
and I'll see you at the conference. Looking forward to it.
yeah. So bye, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Bye bye.